Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I believe I speak for us all. We've had a very, very long day, and I want to entice you with some pleasantries. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank all the contributors so far, and I've listened very carefully to the previous speaker, and I must say and commend the ministry for the excellent work they're doing. However, I believe that there is still room for improvement. Mr. Speaker, there once was a man walking on the seawall, and for this story's sake, we will call him Polari. No relation to the Honorable Member Hamilton. When the Almighty noticed him, God said, he's a God-fearing man, upright and honest. The Almighty said to Polari, "For your faithfulness, I want to reward you." Polari said, "How, Lord?" Well, the Almighty said, "I need you to make one wish." Well, Polari said, "Lord, I've been working hard. I need a vacation. But I'm afraid of flying and I'm afraid of sailing. I prefer driving. Lord, I want you to build a bridge from Guyana to Dubai because my friends left me out of the last trip, so I want to go on my own." Well, the Lord paused for a minute and said, "Polari, are you sure this is what you want? I need you to think very carefully because I want to give you something meaningful." So he paused. He said, "I'll come back tomorrow and I'll tell you exactly what I want." He went back to the Lord and said, "Lord, I know what I want. I have been married 4 times and I've gotten divorced 4 times. All the women that they keep saying, I cannot please them. I'm insensitive. I don't know how to treat them. I don't understand them. Lord, help me to understand women." The Lord paused and he asked Polari, how wide do you want this bridge? How much lanes you want? Mr. Speaker, Budget 2022 is like Polari not understanding women. Not because of the lack of comprehension or the lack of intellect. The Guyanese people don't understand this fluff and bluff of a budget. Mr. Speaker, I wish you, the members of the Honorable House, the clerk, the staff, the persons seated, and the people of Guyana a happy, healthy, safe, and prosperous new year. As I rise to make my contribution to this year's budget debate, one word comes to mind: adversity. Adversity is a difficult or an unpleasant situation, but it's one of the most powerful forces in life. It can bring out the best or the worst in you. Adversity provides the opportunity to believe, to revitalize your commitment to what you want to achieve, and reassess what you are willing to sacrifice to make it happen. It builds character, learning, resilience, creativity, and conviction. It teaches us to embrace challenges and grow from overcoming them. When we face adversities, we as Guyanese have only one option: march forward, fight harder, push past the seemingly impossible circumstances, turn adversities into triumph. Prosperity. Prosperity is a condition of being successful, flourishing, or thriving. In other words, economic well-being. Prosperity enables people to gain meaningful employment, pursue opportunities, live lives, and build a future for themselves and their families. It reduces vulnerability, enhances resilience, and makes one economically stronger. But, Mr. Speaker, development and growth must not be a zero-sum game. One's personal advancement must not be to the expense of others. By that I mean the expense of Guyanese. Isn't that what Guyanese should enjoy? Shared prosperity is the order of the day, but not under the PPP. Mr. Speaker, these are challenging and unprecedented times for Guyana. We understand the context in which Budget 2022 has been developed. A lot of fluff with bluffs. However, we are concerned that the current budget will not adequately address the economic fallout and the rising inequality that have worsened since the COVID-19 pandemic. The Honorable Member, Dr. Ashley Singh, from across the aisle, spoke of policies during his budget presentation. Mr. Speaker, might I remind the House, good policies do matter. Sometimes something we, the APNU AFC, agree with. On this side, we have always held that people matter, and any good policy must be crafted with people at the center of it. The big question I ask when considering these estimates is, what are the economic benefits that is proposed in this budget? What will it bring and contribute to the well-being of the residents of Upper Demerara Berbice? The Regional Democratic Council have never concurred with some aspects of the financial submission. The hard-working subcommittees of the RDC met with the administrative arm. However, unfortunately, many of these submissions that were originally identified by the residents were not included. Once presented to the ministry, directives were given to remove projects. Several important critical elements to the region's development were ignored. Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that the honorable members on the other side of the House work as part-time tailors and seamstresses because all they do is cut. In my region, Upper Demerara Berbice, they cut the SIP workers out. They cut the St. John's Ambulance Brigade workers out. They cut young people who work at NDMA. They cut the ICT programs and training programs for young people and even single parents. They've cut the real farmers that should have received the flood grants. They cut even building a new building for the RDC. They've cut the Linen Economic Network Fund and even the board. They cut the Linden Hospital board. They even cut the Wismar-Mackenzie Bridge out of the budget, even though the feasibility study was completed. Under the APNU AFC, they've cut the fire tender that was designated for Kokwani. They've even reduced the tax for community forest associations, knowing well that they depend on that for their livelihoods. They put a stop to the Linden television station, put a stop button on finding investors to replace Russell Bauxite Company, but continues to pump billions into the sugar industry, ignoring and stifling a community who have contributed economically towards this country. They have removed public assistance from some of those living with disability, and I know the honorable member will look into that. They have removed the Citizen Strengthening Program. We have a government who are tailors and seamstresses. What we're seeing is the PPP largely ignoring the representation by elected components of the council and determining their own priority. Where is the governance? Has it taken a walk to Rob Street, Honorable Member Kwame McCoy? There is no longer decentralization of government because now the PPP is instructing the NDCs and the municipalities on how they should function, who to hire, who to get contracts, and how much must be spent. Honorable Member Darmlal, your name is calling. So clearly the views of the people are not being considered. This is not the people's budget anymore. It has become the Freedom House budget. Let me inform the residents of Region 10, our youths, women, teachers, healthcare workers, contractors, farmers, entrepreneurs, social workers, religious groups, persons with disabilities, and those who need public assistance. Your ideas were recorded. The concerns you raised with the APNU AFC councillors, they listened and they formulated policies that applied directly to what you had highlighted. This was transmitted to the PPP government, but was ignored. This or any other region should not be shortchanged of resources that saw a trajectory path to progress under the APNU plus AFC. We thank you, Upper Demerara Berbice, for your 19,200 votes that you gave us in the last elections. And we know we're going to get 100% vote for the APNU AFC at the next. Agriculture. According to the World Bank, agriculture can help reduce poverty by 75% to the world's poor, who live in rural areas and work mainly in farms. My beloved region imports over 70% of food, inclusive of meat, staples, and vegetables. But, Mr. Speaker, you know, in this budget submission, we had asked for a 1 4x4 which will contribute to the agriculture extension officer and support staff. You know what they did? They decided to give us an ATV. We're grateful, but we believe that if we're serious about food security, we deserve more as a region. Because you are a caring government. The PPP is not serious about food security, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, many people welcome the rehabilitation of the I-22 Tacoma Waterfront Road, but caution that military zone markers must be erected around the lone military facility within that area. That is the Tacoma Battle School. Mr. Speaker, the opposition cares for our servicemen and women, the police force and the Guyana Defense Force. They have enjoyed during our tenure the best equipment, training, resources that bilateral relations and money could afford. Mr. Speaker, it hurts my heart to hear our GDF and our police force constantly be called the Slinging Shot Army or the Slinging Shot Police Force. We are an oil-producing nation now. The Honorable Prime Minister would agree that we have to do more for our servicemen and women, and I must say that this budget does not reflect such. We need a modern army and police force. Education, Mr. Speaker. The educational gap continues to grow between the rich and poor. Those in the hinterland and the riverine areas are suffering, while those along the coastal lines are reaping all the benefits that this budget can afford. The Ministry of Education will boast about study resources being prepared and sent to every child. The pressure now is on the parents, some of whom have never gotten the chance at education, but trust the system. They trust the PPP to create a path for their offsprings. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Education will boast of resources that are posted on the website. How can the students and teachers access same when the government did not maintain the internet hubs in the indigenous and rural villages? The Ministry of Education is forcing teachers to take money out of their little salary to absorb the cost of internet access, very well knowing in this budget there is no provision for salary increases for public servants. Team Omicron on the other side of this house, the honorable members, is forcing teachers and students to have in-person sessions, very well knowing COVID-19 cases are spiraling out of control. Such an uncaring and heartless government. I want to know, Mr. Speaker, how, if the government on the other side can explain how the region will strategically and tactically benefit from the plan to address COVID-19 in Region 10, when many of the times we have noticed that their friends are benefiting from throwing big parties and restriction not being applied to them. We want to know when that will end, when we'll have a level playing field. Mr. Speaker, there is some hope. Mr. Speaker, tourism can grow to become one of the most important transformative sectors within Upper Demerara Berbice. Our residents are beginning to enjoy some amount of economic stimulation because we have a bipartisan approach that is geared towards development. However, more can still be done. Our residents would like to be the beneficiaries of an eco lodge at Rockstone, cabins at Great Falls. Tax breaks will encourage investments to come to Linden. Mr. Speaker, we've heard in the budget presentation about 5 to 4 international hotels being thrown up around the country. What happened to Linden and Region 10? Vote in Baitwe. Encourage investment to come to Region 10. Mr. Speaker, an annual subvention is being requested for the Region 10 Tourism Committee. And I know the Honorable Member Waldron, we will ensure that that is done. Mr. Speaker, the call center that the PPP boasts about opening, it was under the APNU AFC that work and construction began. We thank you for completing the project, but I caution this honorable House that those who are employed are being treated unfairly. And I hope and trust continued dialogue coupled with corrective measures will be had. Not because we need jobs, you will give us anything. Not because we need jobs, you will give us anything. Infrastructural work. Will the budget 2022 cushion the growth of unemployment and economic hardship we face with in the region? We have asked that projects be given to contractors within the regions who are compliant. In region during the last year, we've seen over 80% of the contracts being given to persons outside the region. What happened to our small contractors who have been bidding time and time again for projects? And Mr. Speaker, what happens is that when these contractors come from outside of the region, they bring their workers with them. And very little of the residents of Region 10 actually benefits from those jobs.
Honorable member, I'll tell you what happens now. You need an extension.
Comrade Speaker, I do move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude his presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip for the opposition.
Thank you very much.
Honorable member, you may continue.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Whip. Mr. Speaker, the boys are back. And it seems that only those who are friends with the PPP are getting contracts. We need this to stop, man. We need to create a level playing field again for everybody. But let me tell you something, Mr. Speaker. As the APNU AFC prepares to head back into government, get back into government, the party that I represent proudly, who boasts of a good track record, will execute all the projects that the PPP did not execute, and we'll add more to it. Mr. Speaker, let me add a few and tell you what we will do when we get back into government. We'll find a reputable investor for the bauxite in the Barbies River. We will construct our Wismar-Mackenzie Bridge. We will construct a new bridge over the Barbies River to Kokwani. We'll finally construct a university campus in Linden. We will construct a new municipality mall at Mackenzie. And we could go on with what we will do because we reflect what the people want. And sadly, that opportunity was snuffed out of us as a result of what happened in 2020. We will remove VAT. Mr. Speaker, this is a key one. We will remove VAT off of the reconnection of electricity. Imagine, you can't even afford to pay your electricity. You put VAT on your reconnection fee? Oh, come on, man. Y'all need to address that. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on, but I know my time is limited. Allow me to paraphrase a poem that a famous poet wrote and falls in line with the fathers of this nation. It reads, knock, knock, down the doors of racism and poverty that I could not. Knock, knock, down the doors of opportunities for the lost brilliance of men who crowd these cells. Knock, knock with the diligence for the sake of your children. Knock, knock for me for as long as you are free. These prison gates cannot contain my spirit. The best of me still lives in you. Knock, knock with the knowledge that you're my son, but you are not my choices. Yes, we are fathers, sons, and daughters, but we are not their choices. For despite their absence, we are still here, still alive, still breathing with the power to change Guyana one little boy or a girl at a time. Mr. Speaker, we are here. We are here as legislators, and our conscience must guide us in making the right decisions for those to follow. That means our future generations to come. Mr. Speaker, when I analyze this budget, the current expenditure stands at over 4.6 billion. But more than half of that goes to employment costs. The capital expenditure stands at $738 million. That is not enough for a capital tongue. That is unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, as I analyze this budget, Mr. Speaker, we must place within two definings on both hands. On one hand, you have the 1% eating well, while on the other hand, the ribs of Guyanese are showing. That I'm saying, I repeat myself again. On one hand, we have the private sector who probably stands at 1%, benefiting a lot out of this budget, but the rest of the country's ribs are showing. Mr. Speaker, our people are hungry. The small man is hungry, and the PPP they're ignoring their cries. And that is what this budget reflects. Mr. Speaker, at this time, given the clear evidence of marginalization, I cannot support the National Budget 2022 in its current form. Mr. Speaker, We have much work to do, but reconciliation is what we have to ensure that we push. The two sides have to work together. You cannot continue to ignore the people and make decisions just on behalf of them, very well knowing that you don't have their interests at heart. Mr. Speaker, I yield the rest of my time and I say God bless Guyana and save us all from the PPP.